Well, this election cycle certainly showed us a lot. If you didn't learn a lot from this election cycle, you were living under a rock. It has been a hell of a trip to get here, but I know half the country is extremely excited. I would say majority of the country is extremely excited, and there are a lot of people who are not. We're gonna dive in. And today's kitchen table topic is everyone's kitchen table topic, which is the 2024 presidential election that just took place this week. President Trump is absolutely heading back to the White House. The delusionalness that we have experienced from this administration, the Biden administration, is going to be leaving. Thank God. President Trump absolutely demolished Kamala. It was an embarrassing defeat, leaving us at 226 electoral college votes for Kamala, 286 electoral college votes for President Trump. And then he also flipped key states that went blue in previous elections, like this state, Georgia, where we are, North Carolina, both back red. I also think it's important to note that in the first time in 20 years, since 2004, a Republican has won the popular vote. And as of right now, the House and the Senate, it looks like it will be ours as well. This is major. This is major. But I want to start with my first thought, what I tweeted out when I woke up the next day after Election Day to find out that President Trump was the nominee. In fact, the nominee. And I tweeted out that, Black men who reclaimed leadership with courage, evangelicals who prayed not only for the election, but for personal direction, as well as independents who prioritize the nation above their personal views. You are all the MVPs in this election cycle. And I am not afraid to say that. If you can't see that, you are, again, living under a rock. This election has shown us a lot, as I said in the beginning, and no matter what side of the aisle you sit on, there was something to learn. And I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to have a completely straight conversation today. No chaser. We're going to just jump right in. I'm not sugarcoating. I'm not walking on eggshells. We're going to have a real conversation. Some of it may be a little uncomfortable, but if you stick with me, I am excited that you will see where I'm coming from, but not only where I'm coming from, but I'm hoping it will start some conversations that has to be had in our community and in our country. I have a message to both parties, but before I go there, I want to acknowledge the fact that, yes, I identify as a Republican. I am a Republican, but I'm also a voter. I'm also a woman. I'm also a millennial. I'm Black, and I'm politically involved. And I have a lot of interests around this. I've spoken to a lot of people from both sides of the aisle, and I've listened to a lot of perspectives through podcasts and things of that nature. And I have to say, this election cycle was extremely disturbing. During this election cycle, we witnessed lawfare lynching. Thank you, Dr. Jan, for reminding me of that term. Political persecution, 2 assassination attempts, racial division is at an all-time high in my lifetime. I've never seen anything like this. The White House was attacking people, over 70 million people verbally, calling us uneducated and garbage. A broken immigration system that has placed most of our neighborhoods on the verge of collapse. We have small businesses that are struggling to survive and have been for the last 4 years with 0 recovery time. So literally just in the trenches. We have women who are calling abortion healthcare. We have doctors and psychologists saying that there are 57 genders instead of 2. We have men now saying that they can give birth even though no one has ever done it. We have churches endorsing all of this foolishness. We have a female candidate who whole platform, we had no clue anything she's going to do as it relates to policy. But what we were completely sure of is that she was completely advocating for killing children in the womb. We have Black pastors who are choosing the God of civil rights and the God of Blackness over the God of the universe. All kinds of pastors out here are advocating for abortion, homosexual rights, racial division, and that's just the twilight zone in and of itself. comparing the death penalty, which is a form of judgment to those who did something wrong and committed crimes, to abortion, which are babies who are in wombs who have absolutely nothing to do with the decision that's being made, have no say so over it, but we're conflating the two, comparing the two, and basically saying that you can't be pro-life and you can't also support the death penalty, which is absolute insanity. We have both candidates are using this whole topic of abortion as a political pawn to see who's gonna, almost like a hot potato, right? Like, I don't want it. Do you want it? No, I don't want it. I don't. You can have it. And then when you're finally holding it, it's this lackluster, weak response. Although evangelicals make up a huge portion of the voting base here in America, we have celebrities from all walks of life jumping on platforms and in stages, giving speeches as if they somehow relate to the regular person. We got polling places that look like carnivals and having block parties with DJs and snow cones and pizzas, literally dragging people in to do their civic duty. Not to mention 2 wars and Americans supporting Hamas. And the sad part about all that I have just listed is that I can keep going. That it's unbelievable how many moments occurred during this election cycle that made me go, that gave me pause, because I'm like, what are we doing? And all of this will be going down in history. But how did we get here? That's the number one question. How did we get here? What did we miss? Why do I feel super excited inside that we are changing guards, that we have a new regime coming in that's going to completely get things back on track, which I feel confident about. But I also feel unsettled at the same time because I listen to the people that are on social media and how they are in tears. They are crying about stuff that's happening. So I've thought long and hard about these questions, and here's my explanation. Again, this is just my perspective about what is happening in our country. And the reason why I'm stressing this is my perspective is because it's based off of my observation. I believe as America, we have become the fat king. What do I mean about the fat king? The fat king meaning the guy who in every medieval movie, which that's my favorite period piece or period time frame, but in every single medieval movie, you have the fat king who was the leader of everything, who won so many wars, who brought home so much spoilage and was able to prepare and take care of their townspeople so well. They all loved him. But then he got comfortable and he just started eating a bunch of cakes and sugar and just being the fat king. And I feel like that's where we are. For decades, America has stood as the strongest, most lethal country on the planet. And as a result of consistent peace, consistent prosperity, as Americans, we have become increasingly more and more hands off. We often stop watching the government and our leaders, and we begin to focus on coasting through life, just taking it for granted, believing that everything was going to be okay. And next thing we know, we now have body dysmorphia, and the DSM has been turned to transgenderism, and now we have reassignment surgeries happening on little children. Our schools are turned into indoctrination camps and propaganda machines. Racial division is surfacing and resembling the 60s. The economy is tanked. And this is all while we were finishing schools, starting careers, raising families, starting businesses, and just all of the above. And while I'm over the moon that this administration shift is happening, it almost didn't happen. And I believe that Trump would not have won this election without the help of Democrats. Hardcore Republicans and hardcore Democrats may completely disagree with what I'm saying right now, and that's totally fine. And I believe that's because we often live in our echo chambers where we're just talking to our people and we're really not having deep conversations with other people across the aisle. But it's something to be said about how all this played out. And when you float on both sides and you've had those conversations with people on the left, on the right, and in between, I am confident that if there was another Democrat candidate that was in that was put in there that was a male, that had nothing to do with the previous administration and was honest about what this administration have done to this country, I don't think President Trump would have won. A significant amount of Americans craved something different from both sides of the aisle, but Kamala just wasn't it. And the Democrat Party was doomed from the very beginning, and rightfully so. So to be clear, this election is not a support of a candidate. It's a flex from the American people. It's a demand on the next president, which is President Trump. It's letting them know that we have wakened up. We are awake, and we are tired. We are tired of being ignored. We are tired of having to carry the weight of bad decisions. We are tired of the selfishness of candidates. We are tired of people who are running for office but refusing to answer questions, but yet they're demanding our votes. We are tired. And the last thing I want to say before I let you hear directly from someone that I felt summed it up so well is that the American people has spoken loud and clear. MAGA Republicans could not have won this election without the help of non-traditional conservatives and traditional conservatives, those who you call rhinos. If it wasn't for the rhinos voting for President Trump, he would have lost. And as I stated at the top of the show, Republicans, we owe this victory to Black men who silently flex their votes and not their words. We owe it to evangelicals who prayed and chose the candidate they felt they could work with, even though they had issues with both candidates, as well as we have independents who decided that they're going to push their frustration with the fringe on both sides and start focusing on the capability and who had the plan. But don't take my word for it. Listen to this CNN commentator.
He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said,
I would venture to say
we've
that
had
it
enough.
began the absolute moment President Trump was reelected in 2020. They lost the confidence of the American people, and they just never regained it. And it started with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So many of us who have done our research, we understand the historical lie that's associated with Roe, right? And the whole Roe v. Wade stuff. If you haven't seen it, I have several episodes on abortion. Please feel free to go back and check those out. But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it ignited the evangelicals in a mass way. It re-engaged evangelicals, the pro-lifers, to get excited, to feel like all of their efforts was doing something. So we saw a mass growth of pro-life and the pro-life community take place after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which only strengthened the Republican Party side and strengthened us as a base. Then you move forward to COVID. COVID was this monster that obviously surprised all of us. I mean, President Trump was not prepared for it, but how could he be, right? I mean, who's prepared for a pandemic? And because he was able to push Operation Warp Speed, which I do understand that there are a lot of people that have feelings about Operation Warp Speed. I have my own feelings about it as well. I am not a fan. However, what it did do is that it left an option on the table to help fight the virus. But what he did not leave was a mandate. And that was the problem with the Biden administration. So 3 years ago, the demise of the party began, along with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It was the mandates. So now we're coming out of COVID. You have people who have been struggling, people who have lost loved ones and had to watch them die virtually because they couldn't be in their presence physically because of all of these strict rules and all these mandates and all this other stuff. And now you're forcing people to lose their jobs.
Whether you're a New York City school teacher,
I believe in freedom,
or a state healthcare worker,
this is a nightmare.
If you didn't get the coronavirus vaccine, you're now out of a job after a COVID-19 vaccination mandate recently went into effect. Tom Weirman taught health and phys ed at MS 101 in the Bronx for the past 2 decades. Even though the Long Island native was willing to get tested weekly, without a vaccine, he's out of work.
I had COVID, I have antibodies, and we now know that natural immunity is even stronger than vaccinated immunity, yet I'm not allowed to teach.
The CDC is urging everyone, regardless of whether or not they've had COVID, to get the vaccine. They say it will create a better immune response to the Delta variant. According to city officials, 95% of the 150,000 employees at the city's Department of Education have been vaccinated. For those, including Tom, who aren't, they were placed on unpaid leave. The same goes for healthcare workers.
So now, as you can see, we have workers who are on unpaid leave because they are forced to take the big V, the big vaccine, although these are the same people, the people who are forcing them, typically are those who are members of the Democratic Party or supports the Democrat Party, are the same people who say, my body, my choice. But apparently it's only your body and only your choice when it comes to you choosing to kill another life. When it comes to you putting something in your body, you don't have that obligation. You don't have that freedom. You don't have that choice. So that leads me to the next issue, Biden's mental health. I think we all knew that Biden had an issue because he was slurring his words. He was skipping out on opportunities to address the people. And again, this was happening 3 years ago. But guess what? The Dems thought that we were all fools and that we needed to see them and see him and see what he's doing through their interpretation. So they repeatedly denied that there was any issues happening. Check out what Karine Jean-Pierre did when she was being questioned a long time ago in regards to Biden's health.
How is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you, sir.
What is
We're
the
going to
rabbit hole?
Go ahead.
He said
go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead. You saw the president in
there you go,
Vegas,
there
in
you go.
California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there.
More gaslighting the public. Biden's mental health was on the table from day one, and we were lied to. So not only did the Biden administration suffer a blow with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, meaning it increased the Republican base, then we follow it up by these COVID mandates where people are now upset because it's like day one he's in office and they're already losing their jobs, followed by his mental acuity being so ridiculous and him slurring his words, saying ridiculous stuff, and there's no explanation from the White House. You are the highest, you're holding the highest office in the country. You don't know what you're talking about. You're mentioning dead officials, and yet we are supposed to just act like we're not seeing this. We don't know what's going on. Then the hammer drops, and we are hit with this crazy inflation that sent hundreds of thousands of Americans into financial peril and challenge. And not only that, they feel like the answer to this inflation, this craziness that's happening right now, is the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, that later became Bidenomics, none of which actually helped the economy. In fact, it did the absolute opposite. And the problem with the Reduction Act was that it sounded more like the Green New Deal. I don't know any American who can point to how that plan actually helped the economy. And matter of fact, it actually hurt the economy. It didn't repair anything. Outside of the title, it had nothing to do with the economy, but it had everything to do with passing green initiatives, which was very similar to the Green New Deal. And guess who had the deciding tiebreaker vote? Kamala Harris. However, she would claim that there's nothing wrong, that there's nothing to talk about, that nothing happened. So then we started to see her base there at the time, their base, chip away, because now you have an administration who has failed the people. I think the first 2 years, people were willing to give them a chance, was willing to give them a break to say, okay, I get it. It's going to take some time. We just came out of COVID. We understand. Let's just see what happens. When they announced this Inflation Reduction Act, everyone thought that would be good, except when you started listening to it, it had nothing to do with finances. As I stated before, it just sounded like very much so like green initiatives. So people were just like, all right. So there was more people losing, more support being lost, because people were like, all right, I see what you're doing. I don't feel it though. I better feel it before November 2024. You know, you got a few more years, get it together. That's what America was saying. And then we had the war, the Ukraine war, of course. But I believe the Israel and Hamas war is what absolutely damaged the Democrat Party, because there were many people who felt as though they were in support of this war. They were mostly in support of the Israelis and not the Palestinian people, which I believe is rightfully so. I mean, that's our ally. They were attacked. I don't even understand this concept that says you can attack me and also regulate how I attack you back or how I defend myself, because it's really not even an attack. How you can attack me and then regulate how I defend myself. That's pretty much what the Democrat base was telling this administration they wanted to see from them. They believed that Biden and Kamala was somehow in support of killing innocent lives that were lost during war, followed by ignoring every Democrat candidate that was trying their best to say, this is a problem, this is a problem. So that leads me to the next issue, which was the primary. There was no primary. The Democrat Party loves controlling outcomes. They did it with Bernie Sanders, and they did it again. And now here we are, and we have people like Simone telling us that, yep, I know it's not democratic, but we're going to do it anyway.
Democrats, especially Democratic strategists, know. Republican strategists, anyone who is a professional politico, hell, but reporters know. Joe Biden is the president of the United States of America. Therefore, the head of the party that he is on the ticket of, he is a Democrat. Mm-hmm. And if the president of the United States of America is eligible to run for re-election and decides to do so, that's your nominee, baby. That's how it works. I know that that might not sound democratic, but that is the game. That's how it works.
Even if it makes you unhappy, even if the president is not doing what you want him to do, he is your nominee because we told you he was just your nominee. You better go vote for him, and you don't get a say in it. While also acknowledging on air that it's not democratic. But you know what? That's okay. Everyone said it was fine. They're going to keep chugging along. Let's just keep supporting this candidate that's non-speaking, slurring, clearly has dementia candidate with a weak vice president who no one ever sees. And when we do, she's everywhere except for where she needs to be, which is on the border. And then to prove everybody right that there really isn't a democratic process in the Democrat Party, they remove Biden in a coup where all the top Democrat leaders come together and say, you're out. We're putting her in. Not to mention Obama did not want Kamala Harris. And I have a video. If you just stay to the end of this, I have a video that's in an audio that you're going to hear from a former White House staff person who makes it very clear who confirms it too, that Obama was not happy. I think it was obvious because it took him, 10 days to endorse her after all the other big wigs came in and endorsed her. Because I think he knew this was going to be a major problem because once again, we're skipping the democratic process. So they drop Kamala on everyone's lap and says, here, take that, take this. This is what you're going to get. Support her now. If you're a woman, you better support her because she's a woman. If you're a young woman, you better support her because this is the only chance you'll have to kill your baby if you find yourself in a situation where your baby is an inconvenience. Black voters, you better get in line because even though I'm telling you that she may not be black, you're going to act like she is. You're going to tell people she is, and you're going to vote like she is. And that means voting for her simply because she is black. Or at least because we're telling you she's black. So then the Kamala campaign begins, and without one policy position, she throws her website up, which is the insult number one. And then she doesn't even talk about policy. When you ask her, what are you going to do? It takes her forever to get to a point where she can actually tell you what she's going to do. Insult number two. And then she leads with a message of joy while people are boarding up their businesses, while they're struggling to feed their families, while they're taking their family pets to the pound because they can't feed them any longer and they have to choose between whether I can feed my dog or feed my children. But we're supposed to feel joyful. We're supposed to feel like we're excited when you're the person that put us in this position. You're the whole reason why I've passed out over here. And now you're coming to provide me with CPR and I'm supposed to be excited about it. The delusion that came from this Democratic Party is insane to me. They have zero connection to the people. Zero connection to the people. And then the biggest mistake that was ever made was Obama singling out black men, telling them what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing and what is unacceptable.
Even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is?
I believe
putting women down?
That was the moment where the tide shifted. And
that's not acceptable.
On the fence said, you know what? Nope. I am deciding right now that I am not going to support the Democrat Party. I am not going to be told what to do. And I believe that's when they said, I'm going to show them with my vote that I don't have to do what you tell me to do. And that to me is the most masculine, manly thing that has happened in a very long time. And it excited me. I was like, yes, go men, go. Do not let them continue to tell you that you are not good enough, that your voice does not matter, and that you have to belittle your masculinity in order to fit into society. Do not go for it. You are not toxic. You are intelligent. You are strong, and you are leaders. And I thank you for it. But guess what? It wasn't just me who thought that. There was a Democrat strategist that I actually really like. Her name is Nina Turner. And I feel like she summed it up best. Take a listen.
They need to appeal to the needs of the voters. And so when I was a delegate for President Obama in both of his elections in Ohio, right now the vice president is down 11 points in Ohio, even though I fully expect President Trump to take Ohio as he did twice. But to be down 11 points compared to President Biden, that is a problem. But this other issue I want to bring up is a problem, too. Why are black men being lectured to? Why are black men being belittled in ways that no other voting group? Now, a lot of love for former President Obama, but for him to single out black men is wrong. And some of the black men that I have talked to have their reasons why they want to vote a different way. And even if some of us may not like that, we have to respect it. So unless President Barack Obama is going to go out and lecture every other group of men from other identity groups, my message for Democrats is don't bring it here to black men who, by and large, don't vote much differently from black women. And why? as a politician, we should be trying to get all voters to vote. And hopefully there are a few good men out there who do care about the stripping away of some of women's bodily autonomy. But this is wrong for President Obama. It is a wrong course for the Harris-Walz campaign to lay at the feet of black men when they have their reasons. In 2020, the vice president was labeled a cop, as we know.
But do you think, sorry to interrupt you, Nina, but do you think he's right? That one of the reasons is because they don't like the idea of a woman.
It might be some listen, black men are socialized in the same society as any other man. So yes, is misogyny may be a part of it, but again, is President Obama and is the Harris-Walz campaign going to lecture other male groups in the same way that they're
celebrity parties? We saw celebrity after celebrity after celebrity try to convince us that they can relate to regular folk when I don't even remember the last time they've stepped foot into a grocery store. So we're just like, okay, you're on and on, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? The people in the audience was like, can you just shut up and sing? How about that? We're mad at Beyonce, not because she has something to say, because most people don't ever hear her say anything, but we're mad because we want you to just sing. So entertainers, entertain. And I believe out of all of this, out of all these missteps, out of all these missed opportunities, I believe the biggest one of all was putting a woman at the top of the ticket against President Trump. Take a breath. Hold on. Before you hit that dial, before you turn me off, hear me out. Sure, if we had picked Nikki Haley would have won. Got it. But then again, I don't know. It would have evened the playing field a bit. But we're not having the uncomfortable conversation about whether women serve as good leaders in our country, in our state, in our cities. And we're not doing it because we are all being held hostage by black girl magic. And as a woman, I am here to tell you, I am not confident in these females leading these countries, these states, and these cities. And before you attack me, I think I can prove why I feel the way I feel. And I'm not going to lead you with a bunch of opinions. I'm going to show you some stats. I'm going to show you some statistics. I'm going to talk about some key cities. Because I believe that we are all uniquely designed to work together. And it is impossible for us, male and female, for two genders to be able to work together when we are stepping on each other's toes, running in everybody's lane. And I know that there are women out there who do not want to hear this. And I know that deep down inside, you know I'm telling the truth. But it's a hard truth because it feels limiting. It feels oppressive. It feels like we are struggling to find ways to encourage our young women. And I get all of that. But it's not true. We have been lied to by the feminist movement. And if you can see by all the young women who are crying every single day, who are terrified, who think that somehow the whole world is coming to an end because the feminist movement told them that Trump is bad, Kamala is good, and your health care is going to be gone. This has been a detriment to our society and to our female populace. And today, according to the U.S. Census, approximately 30% of American women ages 18 to 30 are single and have never been married. 47% of American women ages 18 and older that are single, that includes those who have been married, who may have been divorced or are widowed, is at 47% right now. In the 1950s, approximately 30% of women ages 18 and older who were single at that time. Today, we're looking at so let me make sure, because I said that really fast. So let me explain that to you. So what I was saying is that right now we're seeing that 30% of American women ages 18 and older who are single and have never been married. And then we have a separate group which also includes these women. So you add in the women who have been divorced, the women who are widowed, and now we're at 47%. Whereas when we go back to the 1950s, we see a totally different picture, because in the 1950s, approximately 25 to 30%, when you go back to the 1950s, 30% of women ages 18 and older were single. So no matter how you look at it, right? And that's also including those who were widowed or divorced. So 13% of 18 people ages 18 years of age and older in the 1950s compared to 47% today. Okay? Now let's look at black women. 45% of black women ages 30 or older have never been married. 45% compared to the 1950s, where that number was at 25 to 30%. 25 to 30%. Now we're at 45%. And here was the craziest one that I just was like, oh my God. Approximately 58% of black women ages 50 and older are single and have never been married. In the 1950s, that was right around 47%. And if you go back even further, that number gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I think we're looking at a trajectory where that number is going to be so crazily high. It's just going to be so high right now because I see so many women that are just rejecting family and traditional values. 15 to 20% of women in the United States ages 30 and older are childless, meaning they've never had children. And I am not someone who is knocking that. I'm in that boat. I understand it. I have my own personal reasons. And I know there are other people that also have their own medical and personal reasons. But the fact of the matter is there is a push to remain childless as if that's your best life, as if that's living your best life. So we have a number of young women who are choosing not to have children, choosing not to have family, all while there's a huge percentage, I think it's right around 20%, they say, of women that feel like they are sad because their life is not going in the direction they want it to. But they have everything else. They have their careers. They have all that good stuff. Not to mention, since 1973, when Roe v. Wade was passed, we've had over 62 million abortions. What is the difference here? What's happening here? It's the loss of values. And at the core of who we are, we understand that there is a need for restraint. There's a need for boundaries. There's a need for gender roles. It's not about oppression. It's about an organizational structure that causes two genders to be able to work together simultaneously and live in a peaceful, prosperous way. Hundreds of years ago, marriage and family was a sign of security. It was better to have that support to operate in your strength. Men were providing and protecting, and women were nurturing and caring for the home. It created a balance. It was impossible for there to be a feminist movement during the Tudor period because there was just too much work that needed to be done. And when it comes down to physical strength, we all know that men carry more physical strength than we do. You think that was just by chance? I mean, this is from a scientific perspective. I'm not talking about this from an emotional perspective. The fact of the matter is, I need my husband in ways that I know that another woman cannot support me in. And I'm not just talking about reproduction. So the fundamentals of a traditional family is lost, and it's being lost. We've got to talk about this. We have a lot of things that we have got to address. Messaging that has been towards women is anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. That's been the messaging to women. And when you send that message, you're also sending that being a woman isn't good enough. That I have to somehow compete with a man in order to see myself as a strong woman. And not only do I have to compete with him, but I got to beat him. I have to win. Which leads to the belittling and the diminishing of his strengths. And the push, and if he pushed back on anything, then he's misogynistic, he's anti-woman. If I hear that word one more time, I don't think men can be misogynistic. Men know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they are very clear on what our strengths and weaknesses are. And I know that because men are way more observant than women. Why? Because we talk a lot. We're always talking. We are always talking. Men are less of a talker. They observe. They see what's happening. I digress. Moving on. So this problem, this whole you're anti-woman because you can't stand the skill sets that you can't stand to allow me to compete with you in your lane. So now he's the problem. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So what am I saying? Apart from these statistics, we also have historical data. If you look at the major cities that have been ran by women, particularly in 2020, we had San Francisco, we had Chicago, we had Atlanta, we had Washington, D.C. Let's be clear. San Francisco looks like the homeless situation just threw up all over the state. You got homeless people everywhere. It's unbelievable. You have Chicago. Well, that's interesting. If you look at Chicago, I mean, they had to get rid of their female mayor, who was also a lesbian, but still could not run in the lane as a man. You had Keisha Bottoms. She had to get out of here as well. They got rid of her because clearly she wasn't doing enough. And then when it was time, when we had looting and all this craziness and Antifa zones and all this stuff happening in Atlanta, who did she pull in? 2 men. She had the rapper T.I. and Killer Mike standing beside her to help her reinforce the power she needed to get these people to stop looting in these businesses. Because the strength of a man is noticeable. It is recognized. You cannot toss it away. So then you look at Washington, D.C. I mean, we're painting streets, talking about Black Lives Matter. What about the lives that you also represent that are not Black? Mayor Bowers. Once again, all women, all Black women, all cities ran to the ground. This is not about mental capacity. This is not about capability or belief in self. It's about a divine ability and specialized skills that we've each been given in order to operate in society. And while I believe, I should say, that our emotional capacity is what makes us great in life, I love being a woman. I believe, and I am not suppressed or oppressed by any means by my husband. I think everyone can see that. But I also believe that we've got to start highlighting the female strength and not its masculinity. We can't continue to take the man out of woman and tell the woman, I want you to go and operate in your man. And we're losing the womb part that makes her unique. There's an aspect of us that makes us unique. And at times, this impacts our ability to make tough decisions. And this is why I am challenged. Because if we don't know who we are as a woman, if we are not secure in ourselves as a woman, if we are not secure in our own personal beliefs and what we can do in our own skill sets as a woman, then how in the world can we lead a country, a city? Like, what do you mean? We're too busy trying to compete with the man because we're not confident with ourselves. It's gone on way too long. We care way too much. It's too much. It's just too much. And I'm not saying that women can't lead at all. I think that we are best equipped to lead in certain capacities. But we cannot do it if we are insecure and feeling inferior to masculine energy. I think women are obviously great at leading their families. I think we're obviously great at leading communities, boards, businesses. I love us as ambassadors in government affairs. I think we are great. There's nobody that can articulate an emotional message better than a woman. And I'm all for that. But I'm no longer accepting weak women that are trying to prove they're strong as potential leaders. I'm over it. I'm completely over it. Get it together. Tighten up your backbone, get some courage in who you are as a female, and stop trying to belittle men so that you can feel stronger. I'm over it. Check out what this Democrat strategist has to say about why she believes the election was completely doomed as well.
I am so disappointed and really insulted. I'm a Howard alum, and that she didn't have the decency to walk out and say something to her, to her university, make a comment to the United States. Things were not looking well for her. It wasn't completely over, but short of a miracle, we knew which way this was going. And that she didn't have some grace. I mean, it shows us how classless she actually is, a sore loser. And even though it's painful for her, for the Democrats, I think America might be relieved at recognizing and realizing they don't have to put up with this any longer. And if this is what they were walking into, maybe it's better that it gets, cut at the nip right now. The biggest mistake was her not selecting Shapiro. I mean, she had an ace in the hole, and she didn't take that. Shapiro is so well respected, liked. He's doing an incredible job in Pennsylvania. And the reason she didn't take it is another part of that personality that, eked through. She is so completely insecure that she could not have someone that bright around her to upstage her and outshine her. And so this is why she didn't select him, I'm pretty sure. She made a lot of mistakes by bringing on all of Hollywood and Beyonce and all of these people.
But they always do that.
Beyonce wasn't very happy. One of the things I noticed is that, or I really believe is going to happen, is that, we have to remember that Obama and Michelle did not come out to endorse her for about more than a week, about 10 days after all of the other elite Democrats did, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all of the others. But they didn't come out. And Obama really wanted to have a proper, go through the process of the primary and everything, let the Democratic National Committee choose and select who they really wanted for a candidate. Obama has been telling people all along, before she became vice president, not to do this and not to jump to that. Willie Brown as well, who had been the mayor of San Francisco, said give her a position somewhere, but not VP.
Not VP.
People closer to her knew what was, coming on. And so they didn't listen to that. The Congress, I don't know which way it's going to go, but I think that if we have a couple more Republicans in the Senate to carry us through these next 4 years, but I think it's going to be easier for Trump than it was, back in 2016.
First of all, congratulations. You did it. We pulled it off. Thank God there's a change of guard. We've got to get that woman and that man out of the White House. We have to do it. I'm so sorry. They got to go. But we got to examine how this all happened. And there's a few things a few key items that I want to discuss that I believe we must straighten out. First of all, we got to stop ostracizing people who we feel are not Republican enough based on whatever your raggedy list is of what Republicanism is. And I emphasis on raggedy because you cannot possibly tell me that I am not Republican enough because I don't think like you. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. 19% of black men supported President Trump in Georgia. That many of these supporters were also independents that supported President Trump. They are not MAGA. They will never be MAGA. They don't want to be MAGA. They do not want, let's stop putting people through litmus tests. Let's accept, if you're a Republican and you vote Republican, great. We appreciate you. Thank you. Moving on. Let's also realize that the will of God is the will of God and we cannot stop it, but that doesn't mean that Trump is now taking the place of God. He is not our savior. He is not here to do everything right. He is not going to be perfect. So let's please remove this whole God complex that's around him. Let's be grateful for him being used and appointed at this time to carry out the will of God, but he is not the savior. Another key point, evangelicals are now the new the backbone of the Republican Party. We need to get it right with the pro-life movement. We need to get it right. We need to get rid of the abortion pill because that is the new clothing hanger of today. We've got to get rid of that. We need to have real conversations with the pro-life movement to see what we can do. And lastly, no more dynasties. I'm over it. I don't want it. I do not want it 4 years from now. I do not want to hear anything about Eric Trump running or Don Jr. running. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want it. Let's be focused. I know everyone's talking about J.D. Vance. I'm open to hearing him, but I am not here for political dynasties. We are completely over it. Over it. So I want to hear what you think. Please let me know what you think in the comment section, wherever you are. Remember to rate if you are on the podcast. Remember, if you're on the YouTube page, to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. What do you think? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where we'll have a female president? What do you think? That's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for allowing me to rant. Thank you for allowing me to give you my thoughts straight with no chaser. Until next time, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth. I'll see you next week.